Hey, welcome back to He's on Fire podcast. It is a breaking news type of day since we usually come at you middle of the week. You all know by now, Steve Keim, Kliff Kingsbury, gone. One was fired, one resigned, one put in a letter of resignation. We'll get into that stipulation in a little bit. We need to bring on my co-host, the one and only Jay Joyce. It was a good day today, wasn't it?
Yeah, man, I was just working. I had a pounding headache and stuff, and I'm like, this day is sucking right now. And what do you know? Like, I'm all waiting until like the 2 o'clock sort of press conference and stuff. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I gotta wait till then. And then a little after 9, the Cliff Kingsbury stuff came out, and it totally lined up my day, and I couldn't be happier.
I was like first thing too. It was like 9:30, close to 10 o'clock or something like that. It
Yeah,
was great. I mean, it was hard to focus today. I'm doing one thing over there, like, oh, Ian Rappaport said something about who they're trying to go for. Oh, here's the Cardinals post game or the presser. Here's this, here's that. It just kept popping off today. It was awesome. Special guest. We got the one and only Joseph from ArizonaSportsUnderground.com. It was a great day today, wasn't it? It was a little after, was it close to noon on your side when the news broke today?
Yeah, somewhere thereabouts. I was actually in the office and saw the tweets, and I was like, it was interesting. It's I think it's a good day. It's a little bit of a weird day, but there's some.
No.
I guess I'm a little more kind of tempered on some of these things. I mean, I think Keim definitely, he needed to move on. I think Kliff. We'll get into it more. I'm excited about the future. I think it was the right move. I think Kliff is going to land somewhere, be an OC, and probably kind of reestablish himself. But yeah, I mean it's an important day. It's a pivotal day, and it's a day that has a lot of interesting potential on the horizons. So
This was, I want to start here. To me, this is nothing but a good day. The it wasn't a toxic environment, right? It
mhm.
definitely wasn't toxic like some people want to make it out to be, is what I'm seeing a lot of,
Yeah.
but it was not an environment conducive for winning. So for all intensive purposes, it's toxic to me because we
Mhm.
weren't winning. That wasn't a culture that bred winning. That wasn't a GM that picked right when it came to the draft, especially even when it came to coaches. He wasn't really even picking right. He was batting 333, and then this season happened, and you could say he was able just to pick one decent coach who just up and left on us.
Yeah.
Today was a good day. We can change the culture. We can change the narrative. We're changing the tune. We're cleaning house. Hopefully, the Vance Joseph thing, I really want to ask you about, Joe. Get your take on
Yeah.
that. This is a good day for Cardinals fans. This is something that I've been wanting ever since the downfall of the COVID year, which was Kliff's second year. That was the D Hop year, where he caught it against the Bills, right? And that's when we blew it against the Rams and 49ers at home to not get into the playoffs when we lost to their third string quarterback. Joe, remember his name for the
John
Rams? Remind me.
Wolford.
John
John
Wolford.
Wolford.
You'll
Yes.
you won't I forget. I block it out. You'll never let
It's
me forget.
traumatic. Yeah.
Ever since then, it was clear and obvious to me that Kliff Kingsbury is not a leader of men. You don't go out that way. Sure enough, it happened the next year. Sure enough, it happened the year after that. And here we are, a year late, in my opinion, but it's hard to fire a guy after going to the playoffs 13-3. It's really hard to justify it. But a year late, and we're back to healing. And I think year one going into next year is more about being a competent franchise, putting a competent team on the field and competing in games. If we were to go 9-8 next year, I think that's an absolute win. And those are my expectations moving forward, regardless of the hire, right? Anything can happen. Look at the Jags, 9-8, and they win. Lions almost pulling it out. The Seahawks should have never sniffed the playoffs, and there they are. Anything can happen. This is nothing but a good day for the Arizona Cardinals football organization. Jay, turning the page now, looking forward. Just give me your reaction. This is something we've wanted on this podcast for over a year. And now that it's happened, where are you at mentally?
Uh, surface level feelings. I'm being really positive. I'm liking the change, and finally, Bidwill showed that he has some dog in him. clearing house. When it comes to Vance Joseph, he's kind of a middle of the pack defensive coordinator. When he was head coach for the Broncos, it wasn't a good time there. So with Vance Joseph, if he decides or if Bidwill decides to keep him around, I'm not going to be too mad about it. He did overachieve this season. The defense was on the field all game, every game, this whole season, and I think the defense, for the most part, did a relatively good job considering the injuries and being on the field for X amount of time, basically the whole game. But as an Arizona sports fan in general, I am leaving a lot of room for disappointment. I mean, this could get worse if we get the wrong people.
Damn
But
it.
the names that are floating around, I'm liking the names. We're going to get into the names in a little bit. But I'm thrilled. I'm glad Steve Keim is not calling the shots anymore. And with Kliff, I think he's a really good guy. I think just right now, the NFL head coaching job is just a little over his head right now. Like Joe said, I think as an offensive coordinator, for a couple of years, maybe get his feet underneath the rug and just try to learn the NFL game, and maybe he can progress into a head coach a little down the line. I think there's a little room for growth right there. I think he could pull it together, but I mean his history doesn't show that. But as for the Arizona Cardinals organization, I'm stoked for the future to come. I really am.
Joe, you said you sounded a little apprehensive about it. Explain to me your initial thoughts and then how you've had time to kind of let it marinate a little bit as the day has gone on.
Yeah, so right off the bat, Keim being gone from the organization is a big win. I think he's the bigger problem
Yeah.
in terms of how he's built the roster, just some weird roster building strategies in terms of going with middle linebackers, prioritizing them. As much as I love Isaiah Simmons and Zaven Collins, I think they're going to be very good for us. That's just not where you use your first round picks, especially not back-to-back years. Not prioritizing the interior offensive line in the draft, not prioritizing defensive line. So just some weird things, so I think that's the big one with Kliff. I mean, I think it was the right move. I feel for him. I think he is actually a good leader of men, and I think he is a good coach. I think the problems with him are two things. One, I think his offensive system doesn't work in the NFL unless you have stars at the receiver position who are healthy. And when those players aren't there, which they weren't for much of the year, his offensive system, because of the way it's just run, it can't overcome that, right? So when he has the player makers he needs, we get what we got in the first half of last season, right? Where they were arguably the best team in the NFL for half the season. But when he doesn't have those players, the system can't overcome, like Shanahan, playing with a 7th round rookie quarterback and other teams. So I don't think he's not a good leader. I think he's smart. I think there are some good things about his coaching and his blocking schemes, but fundamentally, I think that particular offense, especially with what it does with the receivers and the routes, just can't overcome injuries. So he needs to go to somewhere, be an offensive coordinator, further adapt his offense, like Jay talked about. And I think if he can do that, I think someday he'll be a good coach somewhere. And I think there's a few other things he might need to learn about managing in terms of, calling players out. I know some people have talked about that, but I'm not as down on him as a coach as some people are. If Steve Keim had built a better roster, this team, Kliff probably could have won, but if the injuries come, then he can't withstand that. So I would still rather find a coach who can win in suboptimal situations. So I still think it's a good move. I'm just a little more I guess there's a little more nuance with me with Kliff. But again, so I think it's the right move. It's just, I'm not as down on Kliff as some people are.
We can't hear you.
Yeah.
Understandable. Everybody has the right to their own opinion.
Yeah.
I was tired of a lot of the play calls. I think what you said about that adapting somewhere else, I think under the direction of a head coach about we want to run or pass in these certain situations. I want to screen in these situations. Yeah. And then you need to feel it out with that. I think, having that mentorship would be good for him. I was so tired of watching those plays left
Yeah.
and right, man. I'm so tired of watching the plays that were thrown behind the line of scrimmage, all that stuff. I'm happy we're moving forward. It's over. It's done with. The Kliff Kingsbury, Steve Keim regime is done. We're looking forward. Man, I can't help but just hope and pray Vance Joseph is not a part of this staff going forward. I like Vance. That's fine. You know what? I said this on Twitter. Am I a bad person for not caring really if you're a good person or not when you're failing as a coach? Like, don't get me wrong. You need to be a good person to be a coach, right? You can also be kind of a douchebag. Like, look at the guy that's still up and coaching New England, right? You can be a douchey guy, but still, win. Overall, he's not a bad guy. He's not going out committing all these crimes that we don't think are happening. So you have to be a good person to a point. I get that, but look at Herm Edwards and ASU. Herm Edwards, oh, he's a great guy. This and that. Dude, I don't give a shit. That didn't get us anywhere, man. Look at Monty Williams right now. It's not getting us anywhere. Be a great guy. That's awesome. I want a winner more than anything else. So everyone's like, oh, I feel bad for Kliff, this and that. Dude, he's getting his money. He's getting a lot of money. He's going to get to go somewhere like an Alabama or a USC or a New England, and he's going to be just fine. In fact, he will probably revitalize his career. But I don't care that he was a nice guy, and I don't want that to be something that everybody needs going forward. I want somebody that can be kind of an ass like the way Bruce Arians was to players, who can get the best out of players, especially at this level with prima donnas, young dudes getting money and that kind of thing. So Vance Joseph, again, I know he's a nice guy, but I don't need to see 16 more games of our defensive backs playing 8 to 10 yards off of our receivers again, right? I don't need to see these soft zones where 5 yards, 6 yards, 9 yards, screenplay for 3, and then there's the big 15-yard play, right? I know we didn't give up a lot of big runs or a lot of big plays down the field, 40 plus yards. In fact, I think we led the league in some sort of category like that, where it was the least amount of explosive plays through the air. That's great and everything. I just want a full rebuild top to bottom. You want to keep an assistant or two on, that's fine. I'm ready to move on. Joe, can I get your thoughts on Vance Joseph, the defense, him potentially being a coach, at least getting interviewed? Give me your thoughts on that. Is he getting interviewed as part of a dog and pony show too? Because you have to interview.
So you're wondering, you're asking, is it part of the Rooney Rule thing? I think he's getting an interview in part because Bidwill, I think, really means what he says, that he's going to cast a wide net. He's going to interview internal candidates. He's going to interview external candidates. And he's going to try to do his due diligence. I also think they know and respect Vance. They said they like him in the building. I think they respect him, and I think he is a good leader. I agree that some things about his defense I don't love, in terms of the soft zones like you talked about, and I think there's just as a blitz heavy defense in a league that has moved away from blitz heavy defenses right now,
that really couldn't get to the quarterback that much this year either in a blitz heavy scheme.
So I commend Vance. I think he got a defense that at times outperformed its personnel, especially as there were injuries.
Sure.
And I think he's a good coach. I don't think he's done enough to earn a head coaching gig. I mean, in a vacuum, you look at a coordinator. Okay, well, the league's an offensive league. So if you're a defensive coordinator, you already have a strike against you in terms of being considered for a head coaching spot. Whether you think that's fair or not, it's an offensive game these days. So he's already got one strike against him. So if you're a defensive coordinator and you want to be considered as a head coach, you better have an elite defense. Like a name we're going to talk about, D'Amico Ryans. So I just don't think Vance Joseph has earned enough to be considered as a head coaching candidate. Now, in terms of retaining him as the defensive coordinator with the Cardinals, you're going to want to bring in a coach who's going to have an opportunity to put together his own staff. The only reason Kliff Kingsbury didn't assemble his own staff is he came right from college, and Steve Keim helped sort of assemble that staff because Keim had more connections in the NFL. But you want to hire someone and let him bring in his own defensive coordinator. If that person who comes in wants to retain Vance Joseph, then I support their decision to do that, their right to do that. But I don't think Vance should be. I don't think he should be the next head coach of the Cardinals. And I like him. Like you, I like him, but I don't think he's done enough to be that. to earn that right. And I don't think that the organization should put a stipulation on a new head coach that we have a defensive coordinator for you, right? You don't do that. I think you let that coach hire who they want to hire.
Absolutely.
So for me, I just, based on those things, to me, there's not a scenario where Vance Joseph is retained unless that next coach wants him.
I think that's absolutely fair. Before we get into the candidates, because I have one that I just need to talk about first. JJ, Vance Joseph potentially staying. Does that turn your stomach a little bit? Are you all for it? Give me your thoughts. And there's a couple comments in the chat we're going to get to as well after that.
Yeah. Like I said a little before, he's kind of the middle of the pack defensive coordinator. I mean, we definitely have our issues with him. Last season, I think we were one of the worst teams when it came to run defense, and we gave up a lot of big plays last season.
That
Last
was our
season, then
Achilles heel the year before too
yeah,
in the playoffs by far.
yeah, and then this season, I mean, yeah, we did overachieve in some aspects. We did play above our personnel, but again, it's the soft coverages, giving up big chunks of yards, depleting, drives, and like Vance Joseph's reputation of not playing young guys is really killed this defense, in my opinion, too. That stretch of games where Isaiah Simmons was only playing about 10% of the snaps was not good for the team, in my opinion. Same thing with Zaven. When Zaven missed that sack on, uh, God, I'm spacing on the name now. Rams QB, Matt Stafford. Sorry,
Yeah.
God. When he missed that potential game-winning sack on Matt Stafford in the beginning of the season, if he would have played a lot more in the season previous, he makes that tackle 9 times out of 10. It's just like little stuff like that has really hurt this defense for the last couple of seasons. If somehow we can secure a new head coach and then they can bring somebody in, I'm all for it. But at the same time, since Vance is a middle of the pack sort of defensive coordinator, I think we can kind of get away with it. Just considering how some of the teams in the NFC are right now. I mean, a lot of teams in the NFC right now kind of middle of the pack defenses. Same thing with coordinators, and I mean they made it into the playoffs. So I think as long as we have a stud offense and we can put points on the board, I think we're okay.
And I do think this is a very intriguing place to go. Everybody's like kind of down on Arizona. And I saw a list today that actually put Arizona number 2 and Carolina surprisingly number 1. If you pair, I still think Joe's probably with me on this. You pair Kyler, Ertz, Hop, Hollywood, a healthy Rondale Moore together, and a semblance of a legitimate, a middle of the pack offensive line. Middle of the pack offensive line. I still think that's a top 5 offense. I really, really do. You put that with the amount of money that we have for salary cap coming up, the number 3 pick, like this is an attractive destination. Not to mention you're just in Arizona during the winter in the beginning, right? That's just, we're naturally a great destination to be at. Everybody says that, and they have been saying that. So this is an attractive situation, but the first thing I really want to talk, actually, there's a Yoel Hyman from ASAP Sports Network. He said with Kyler's injury timeline, whomever gets the job will have a rebuilding first year. Does the contract put the cap? Does the contract put them in a cap situation? I don't think so, especially with how much it opened up, and now you don't have to. Damn it, you don't have to sign JJ Watt, son of a bitch. That sucks, right? But you don't have to sign him to that massive deal. You got to use that money somewhere else. So I don't think that necessarily strongholds him in a little bit. But this is who I want to talk about. I want to talk about Sean Payton. To me, for me, it's Sean Payton 1, Harbaugh number 2. I don't think Harbaugh is a realistic chance anyways, because we've heard of Denver and Carolina already, and where there's smoke, there's fire. I just don't think that would have fit for his system. If you look at what he built with Kaepernick and I guess Alex Smith and the 49ers in the run game. Look at the run game and the beefy old line that they've done up in Michigan. That's my personal preference of football. I would love a smash mouth run first type of team anyways. I would love that. But with what Sean Payton did with another short QB and Drew Brees, that's who I want to go after. An offensive guy that has weapons. He can get it out. And I don't care if it's a first round pick. I hope it's not a first round pick this year. But to be honest, even if it is, I'll do anything to get the right coach in. And I don't know if I trust Bidwill to get that right GM and that right coach. And I mean, he's the common denominator in everything right now, right? So, Joe, I want to ask you two-part question. One, do you believe in Bidwill making the right choice? And two, give me your thoughts on Sean Payton. But let's start on Bidwill.
I do. I'm actually a Michael Bidwill fan. I might be in the minority here. I think
You're the one.
Yeah, I'm the one. I'm the one.
About you.
It's me and his family. They're the only,
I love it.
So I listen, he's made some missteps. I think, holding on to Keim for so long and trust and kind of based on the relationship was obviously a mistake. I think, the independent study addendum was a PR mistake. But I think Michael Bidwill is smart. He's a federal former federal prosecuting attorney. I think he has a good plan for how he's going to approach it. I really think the problem is that this organization, historically has, promoted from within so long, going back to when Bill Bidwill was in charge. And I think that's just how they was always done things. And Michael carried that on, and there's sort of an insular culture, and they need to bring someone who can say, this is how we did it somewhere else. And Michael seems willing and open to do that. I mean, I watched the press conference and I liked it, pretty much everything he had to say about how he's going to approach that.
Yeah.
And I believe him. Maybe I'm naive, but I believe he's going to approach that way. So I'm just optimistic enough that he's going to take the right approach. He's going to hire someone probably from outside the organization, and hopefully that person's going to come in and kind of, change up some of the things about how their process is. And, I think he's a very thoughtful guy who does things very meticulously and intentionally, right? And I think if he gets the right person from outside the organization as a GM who can bring some of the best practices, I think they're going to get that stuff right. So I do trust him to do it. People who are down on him, like, look at some of the other owners around, like, the league. Like, look at Jim Irsay. Like that guy's like batshit crazy, right?
The Fords.
Yeah. So
imagine dealing with Jerry Jones.
Yeah. Right. So listen, he's made some mistakes, but he's also a guy, and I'll end on this because I know you want to jump in here, Evan, who has shown consistently, and I've said this before, he is not unwilling to walk back his mistakes. That independent study contract addendum was out within 24 hours when it became the news. He allowed the team to draft a new quarterback, or a quarterback in the first round 2 years in a row. Whether you agree with who they drafted, they didn't. There's no way they draft Kyler a year after taking quarterback without the owner signing. That's not a guy who's letting his ego get in the way. And he just fired a coach after signing him to an extension, right? So this is a coach who's an owner, who doesn't let his ego get in the way of walking back and having mea culpas on mistakes. So I just think I trust he's going to do the right thing, and he's not going to let his ego get in the way. The key variable is they need someone from outside the organization to bring new practices.
And somebody that can bring sustainability instead of having flash in the pan seasons, right? Bruce Arians was more sustainable than we've ever seen. But we need somebody like that for 3, 4, 5, 6+ years. That's what we really need. And hopefully a coach out there sees the value in that. But what I wanted to go to, right as I said that, I don't know if I trust Bill Bidwill. I immediately thought of Ray Anderson at Arizona State. And I'm like, dude, he's not going to get fired. He's going to make another stupid coaching call. This is dumb. Kenny Dillingham comes back, and I'm like, I like this. And then things are rolling with Arizona State. There's a lot of momentum behind what that football program is going to. Look back at James Jones, or the hiring of Monty Williams. I thought they were going to hire some schmuck again, right? Some guy that's never coached before, another Lindsey Hunter, or whoever you want to throw out there. Monty Williams. What is he on his 4th, 5th season? Yeah. So there is proof in the Valley that these bad sports franchises can turn it around. So right when I said that, I was like, you know what? It is possible. So maybe I do trust Bidwill. Man, I want to be like, dude, this is your last chance, but he owns the freaking team. So Darth Vader wants to bring back Wizenhunt at all costs. Now let's Sean Payton. It's Sean Payton or bust for me. Joe, am I crazy?
You're not crazy to want Sean Payton. I'm not willing to. Not that it's up to me. I'm not wanting to trade a first round pick for him. If I can get him for a day 2 pick, preferably more like a 3rd round pick, I'm all for that.
What about next year's year 1 pick?
No. And part of that is because there are some other coaches I like a lot that aren't going to cost that. So,
but is that the right coach?
I think the right coach, and I think the right coaches out there. And we can get into some of those names, but there are some coaches I like, and I think can win that can bring a winning organization, can bring a winning team to the Cardinals.
Okay. Are you on the Sean Payton train?
Yeah, of course. I was listening to First Things First today, just about like the NFL games that happened yesterday, and Nick Wright was talking about how Arizona is not an appealing destination for a guy like Sean Payton, and like taking fan bias like aside, just putting it away. I mean, you have Kyler Murray. We know he's a stud. He gets a lot of shit. I know he's injured. He'll probably be back by week 4 minimum, but I mean that's a shot in the dark for later. But offensive weapons. I mean, D Hop, Kyler, Greg Dortch on the come up. James Conner, he was just a Pro Bowler a couple seasons ago. And you have Zach Ertz. Yeah, he has an ACL injury, but he should be coming back around the same time as Kyler. When you have those guys, that personnel, and an unproblematic defensive coordinator right now of Vance Joseph, and Michael Bidwill willing to clean house to really change things with the 3rd round pick. And as far as I know, I think we have just a majority of our picks coming up anyway. I think we own all of them. I say that's as appealing as it gets. I mean, people are talking about the Chargers, Denver. I mean, those are good stories. I mean, Russell Wilson's at the end of his tenure, and Justin Herbert's on the come up. But I think the Arizona Cardinals are in the best situation, and I feel like if Sean Payton comes here, it's just Drew Brees 2.0, Super Bowl time, with him, and he had to go over that hill with Drew Brees being as short as he was, just throw over, defenders, basically jump to see the open man. And if Drew Brees can do it, I think Kyler Murray can do it as well under Sean Payton's rule. And Sean Payton's known for having QB coaches, and that's what this team needs, 100%.
I'm throwing up some 2009, 2010 New Orleans Saints highlights while we're talking about this here.
This was a great team.
I mean, obviously, when you onside kick it to start a half, that's always great. Just what Sean Payton knows how to do with a short QB is so tantalizing to me. And I know, Darth, you asked earlier in the chat, you were like, hey, when or how much are we paying Kliff? Don't worry. It's not our money. It's fine. Oh, look, against the Cardinals. Awesome. That's awesome to throw in there. You love that. It's not our money, man. So we're going to be just fine. Okay. So Joe.
Yeah.
John Harbaugh. I already said he would be my number 2, but there's been no smoke there for that fire. He's going to go somewhere else. Obviously. I love smash mouth football. What would your thoughts be if we got John Harbaugh?
That's a no for me. I know he's had some success at the NFL level, but he wears out his welcome. He has a reputation for having an abrasive personality. To me, that works well in college, or better in college, because players cycle through, and you don't lose them. You don't have enough time to lose them. So I know he's coaching the NFL. I just don't want to bring someone from college. Yes, I know he has, like I said, he's coaching the NFL, but with that abrasive personality, this is an organization that's had so many
Harbaugh. Excuse me. I would take John Harbaugh too.
Oh, John Harbaugh. Yeah, he's
story,
obviously been successful. But think about what kinds of off the field and drama and distractions this organization has had over the last year and a half, I just don't want to bring in a coach whose personality is going to eventually have a likelihood of kind of festering some of that additional drama. So for me, he's a no.
You sold me there. You kind of sold me there about the abrasive personality thing, and that really doesn't work when you're paying professional athletes. I totally actually get that. I didn't even think about that. I'm just, gut reaction. These are the guys who I want.
Yeah.
I'm gonna remove this because I want to bring up your list now.
Now these are the GMs. But I have some coaches if you want.
You have a coach list. Go ahead and put that up too. And let me know when you're
ready. These are my coaches that I like.
Just real quick with Harbaugh. I mean, he has experience with running QBs too. Colin Kaepernick during his prime.
That's fair, Joe.
And what he was able to do with the Niners through his tenure, I mean, they were top of the NFC West every year, and they stacked up wins, and they came a couple plays short of beating Baltimore in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And with that experience and what I remember with him, with Alex Smith and Kaepernick, I think Harbaugh can mold back into the NFL kind of swiftly. So,
for me, the counter to that he was that successful and they still got rid of him, or he still moved on, or whatever the parting was.
Wasn't it his chance to work at his alma mater? That was the whole
probably
draw. Was that
probably?
I don't remember, honestly.
But then why is he leaving his alma mater then, right?
Yeah, so if someone is that successful and still is gone, red flag, right?
That's true.
But yeah. So these are the three coaches that I like. There's a few more names out there. Like I said, I do like Sean Payton. I just don't want to give up, the first round pick. But if we get Sean Payton as our coach, I'll be happy. But DeMeco Ryans, defensive coordinator for the 49ers, Shane Steichen, the offensive coordinator for the Eagles. You talked about a coach who has built a system around a running quarterback. Well, look what he did, with Jalen Hurts. And then Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Lions, who have had a really good offense. They were fourth in total yards this year, the Lions offense. So
the thing that sticks out to me first is you mentioned you kind of want more of an offensive coach or go that way. Is DeMeco Ryans your number one, or did I just misinterpret what you mentioned earlier?
I don't necessarily have a strong preference for offense. I more mentioned that that's the way the league has gone.
Sure.
I like DeMeco Ryans. These aren't necessarily in order of my preference. But I lean lately. I kind of lean towards DeMeco Ryans. The idea being, if you could build an elite defense and get an average offensive coordinator with Kyler Murray and some of the weapons that they can bring, look at what Russell Wilson in his prime did with the Legion of Boom. They had an elite defense, Russell Wilson, a running back, and a bunch of tight ends converted into offensive linemen coached by Tom Cable, right? And they were successful. So, what if you brought in someone like DeMeco Ryans, built an elite defense, let Kyler make some magic, fix the offensive line, right? That they would then have enough offense to get by. And to me, if you have a really good defense, I feel like there's a little more consistency there in terms of you can win those low-scoring games and the high-scoring games, right? So it's a little bit of a lower variance. So there's something about that that's actually kind of appealing to me. But if they hired any of these three guys, I'd be very happy.
If you were to pick one right now, would you go DeMeco?
Probably, because I think he's to me, he seems like maybe the safest bet of the three.
And if we got a DeMeco Ryans, just like John Paul Edwards de Dios said, huge drop off from Jalen Carter to Miles Murphy when talk about trading down. But if you don't trade down and you keep that number three, a guy like Jalen Carter with DeMeco Ryans, that is tempting to me. I would love to see that. And I want to get your opinions on the draft too in a little bit here. Jay, outside of Harbaugh, Peyton, guys on this list, is there anybody on the list that you want to add, or anybody on this list that intrigues you?
This was basically my list, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So when Joe pulled this up, I closed one of my tabs. I'm like, all right, this is perfect. So I hate to say it, but anybody from the 49er tree in the last decade or so, you jump on them because they have some of the best scouting in the last decade. I mean, Evan, you were talking about it earlier. I mean, they've hit on just about every pick for what the last like 5 6 years, and they've been able to do a lot with less, less with more, and just anybody from that camp, from that tree, I think you jump on that, especially D'Amico Ryan. He is a stud. Uh, I love that dude. And outside of Payton and Harbaugh, I mean, throw Harbaugh out. I mean, D'Amico Ryan. That it goes Sean and D'Amico for me. I think this dude would be killer for this for Arizona for sure.
Yeah, I agree. You look at what Robert Saleh has been able to do with the Jets,
Right, right.
first year, I mean, as the Jets the first year, what do you really expect? But then this year, if it weren't for Zach Wilson being Zach Wilson, you could argue they would be in the playoffs right now over what, the 9-8 Jaguars. John said, I like offensive minded coaches. That Wilkes season was blah. One thing that I just randomly remembered, I feel like Wilkes didn't get a nice or a fair shot at it just because when he
Yeah.
was hired on, he wanted to switch to 4-3. But Steve Keim was like, you're staying 3-4, right? And you saw Wilkes going, maybe sometimes, maybe so, like he wasn't ever, I felt like he wasn't able to implement what he actually wanted there. And he was handcuffed potentially a little bit there. And he just got the short end of the straw on that one. But I agree with John. I want to go offense or the fireworks and whatnot. But if we go defense, I can sure talk myself into it. But overall, no matter what, the guy that's going to make that decision is the guy that's going to be hired hopefully here shortly. And we need a new GM as well too. I can't wait for this draft. I am actually excited for this draft. This
Same,
is the
dude.
first draft I'm way excited since Kyler for sure. And before that, there were drafts where like, man, we're just going to do something stupid. And sure enough, we get like Hassan Reddick or something, right? When we didn't need that guy. Turned out he was a great pick and we should have kept him. Another Keim failure. But I'm excited to see what their draft strategy is, the interviews leading up to it, guys that they bring in, right? Who are they going to be interviewing in Indianapolis at the combine? All those things I'm way into this year. Joe, would you mind bringing up your list of GMs? Because I mean, I got to be honest, the GM part I'm a little bit lost on. Nobody knows all the names of the GMs or assistant GMs, the
Yeah.
lead scouts. Nobody knows these things. You know the organizations.
Yeah.
You know their record behind the organizations. You know how many times those guys hit, right? And the very first thing that I look at on this list, you were right. Ian Cunningham, I think he was the first person that was actually brought up by Ian Rappaport outside of internal candidates, right?
Yeah.
Quentin Harris, A-Dub. This guy, you're right. I didn't think about the Eagles because of what they did. And I just don't think of
Right.
the Eagles as like this powerhouse type of team. But you look at the roster they constructed that year when they won. You look at what the Ravens did for, I mean, he was there from 2008, 2016. I mean, Ozzie Newsome before that. So you look at all that experience that's there that he learned under, right? And then with the Bears as the assistant GM, you could arguably say the Bears
They gained
roster this
traction.
year
Yeah.
is better than it's been in the last 5 to 8 seasons, right? Definitely since the
Mhm.
Urlacher days. Ian Cunningham, I'm very intrigued about. What more do you know about him, Joe?
Not a lot more. You kind of hit on it. His with the Ravens, it was mostly some regional scouting and various scouting roles, but he got to work under.
Hold on. We
Yeah,
got a Chicago Bears guy in the house, Mike
What's up,
Hughes from Mike
Mike?
on the Mike ASAP Network. He's been on the show before. Give me in the chat. Give me yes, you did hear about the Bears. Give me your little 2 cents worth on Ian Cunningham. I'd love to send you a link here in the next few minutes and get you on. That this would be a great impromptu thing. But give me your stats there, Mike. I'll send you a link. Joe, go on with Ian while I get Mike in here.
Yeah, so the fact that again Ozzie Newsome, Baltimore Ravens general manager, he's retired now, but this guy, if you don't follow the draft, this guy was probably the best drafting GM for like a couple decades. I mean, drafted guys like Ray Lewis, and Ed Reed. And as someone who loves the NFL draft and watches it every year, like the Ravens, you just watch and you're like, They're usually picking late in the first round because they're good most of the time, and they just make smart picks, and they just do a really good job. I love what they do in terms of drafting edge rushers in the middle rounds, developing them and not overpaying them. They just keep a pipeline of them. They do so many things well and smart. And Cunningham, he didn't make those draft picks. He didn't do that, but he learned in that system. And then he goes to the Eagles, as you talked about, like that Eagles roster is stacked. Like they have a really good roster, especially offensive line, on the defense. And no, he didn't do that by himself, obviously, but he was part of the process that did that. Some people who saw his name and saw he's with the Bears, like, oh, no, thanks. He was the Bears. Like,
Right.
He's been with the Bears this season, one season. So I'm not going to give him credit or culpability for anything the Bears have done. He was the assistant GM for one decision, working under the decision maker, right? So whatever, good or bad the Bears have, he didn't build that. But the processes he's learned under between the Eagles and the Ravens, those are two buildings I like what they do, right? So to me, he's an up-and-coming candidate. I like that a lot.
I'm right there behind you. Hopefully we got Mike coming in a little bit, give us a little more insider, since he's the Chicago guy. The 49ers guys, I'm actually a little hesitant on, and I think Jean Paul gave it was able to break it down here. I'll take the Bears guy. Those 49ers guys are going to fail because Shanahan makes the final decision. I don't know if that's the exact reason why he would fail, but that is a very good point. Give me your quick thoughts on that, and then we'll bring in Mike here.
I think that they've done a good job building a roster, particularly defensively, and they've got some nice offensive linemen. So, Shanahan makes a lot of that work in terms of the offensive side. He does he overachieves in terms of his talent, especially with the running game. But they've had some good defensive coaches, but they've built a good roster. So, I don't mind people who've learned under that process as well. So I again, for me, Cunningham is probably ahead of him because again, maybe I'm just a huge fan of what the Ravens do, and that might be why. But I'm going to give, I think people who've been part of what they did in the 49ers and the way they built that roster, I'm open to that. I think, and if you're looking at DeMeco Ryans, pairing him with a general manager who he's worked with, that's also intriguing, right? And you want to have a general manager and coach who can work together. And obviously with Cunningham, with his time with the Eagles, if we're looking Shane Steichen, there's some, at least some familiarity there. So I'm not down on them. They're just not as high on my list.
And we have yet to get to Adrian Wilson, Quentin Harris as well too.
Yeah.
I'm of the mind that I love you, A-Dub. I will always love you, Adrian Wilson. You're one of my favorite players to ever play. I just want a clean slate. And I want to get into that in a little bit, but welcome you back for the second time on the He's on Fire podcast. We got the one, the only Mike Hughes from Mike on the Mic. What's going on, man? How you doing?
Man, Evan, I'm having a blessed day, sir. I'm having a blessed day. I'm living my life. I've been waving my lovey stick all week long. And one last ride. I had one last ride with Lovey this week. So that was it's been an amazing week.
How did he get another job, by the way? He went from doing nothing with the Bears, going to Illinois, doing nothing to Illinois. Then he gets another shot in a pro franchise, and he decides on Davis Mills. Like, I know the roster. It's just that anyway. I don't want to talk about
where'd he go, Evan? Where'd he go?
I know.
I think that's why you got that shot. Like, it's perfect. It makes sense. It's Texans are gonna Texan, man.
So give me Joe Comeau here from AZ Sports Underground is the one and only that put this list together, and he thinks Ian Cunningham is the best out there. He is your current assistant GM over in Chicago. He's not the GM, he's the assistant GM, so I'm sure you know just a little bit about him. Do you have any background on him? Have you heard stuff on the radio, local sports stuff? What do you know?
Yeah, Ian's a cool guy. I mean, he's kind of, like if you follow baseball, he's kind of like what Jed Hoyer was for Theo Epstein. He's kind of that guy who doesn't really talk a lot. You know, he's kind of just behind the scenes. He does the work everybody needs to know, but doesn't want to talk about. So that's really what it is. He knows the X's and O's. He really understands the game as a whole. He's been throughout the organization for, I think this is his first year. I don't think he was a part of last year. I think he was with the Eagles. I was tuning in and out. I was driving, but in all seriousness, though, you know, I like the resume, but I also look at that resume and I'm like, okay, the Ravens and the Eagles, and I look at what they did during that time frame, and it's not very impressive. But that's not really his fault for the several teams that, you know, he was on. You know, he's not the GM of those teams, so I think he's done the right jobs, he's done the right moves, and he's worked with the right people to get this job. Whether Arizona wants to take a chance on him being a first-time GM, that's really the question. But GMs kind of just don't fall out of trees, and if they do, you probably don't want them because, you know, Ryan Pace is out there somewhere looking for a job. So it's not always the greatest thing to get a former GM. So I think giving him this opportunity, I would be a hypocrite if I said it was a bad move, because I have Ryan Poles, and, you know, he's a first-time GM. He worked his way under. He was a former Chicago Bear. Didn't make the roster, but he was a former Chicago Bear, working in KC as long as he did. I like guys a lot, especially in football and baseball, who have these resumes you don't even want to read. Like, you have so many jobs over the last 10 years. If you have a family that you go to Christmas or Thanksgiving functions to, and you explain to them what your job is, like, he had so many different roles with the Eagles and the Ravens, and that's great. So I think he definitely understands the personnels you would need to get. But the list that Joseph created is amazing, by the way. I was checking it out. It's really in depth. And I think, you know, there's a lot of great options here. And there's some guys that aren't on this list that I'm sure the Arizona Cardinals might pull out of their hat there as well. So I think no matter who you really go with, it's a pretty solid list.
It's fresh blood
real quick.
Sure.
I don't want to take credit for anything I don't deserve. This is a list of the players that the Cardinals have been linked to. So I'll give Michael Bidwill credit for putting together an awesome list of guys.
It's still a nice format. I like the way it's written. There's a note
easy to read.
Thank you, Mike. I like this guy, Evan.
So you were probably jumping for joy. You get the number 1 pick. Honestly, I thought it was kind of funny the year that the Bears don't need a quarterback. Y'all actually get the number 1 pick.
100%.
What do you think you guys are going to do? What's been the talk of the town? Are you guys going to trade back? Are you looking for extra picks? Are you going to draft Jalen Carter? Are you going to swing for the fences and get some guy that maybe shouldn't go number 1, but you got the pick? What are the Bears going to do? Because whatever you guys do is directly going to affect the Texans and then the Cardinals at 3.
I'm 110% trading the pick for Mitchell Trubisky. I want to do one last go. In all seriousness, though, I don't think there's an answer for that. And I think the only way you find out is on draft day. I think free agency will definitely be telling. You know, we have the most cap space in all of the league, and it's not even close. I mean, Evan, you can cut everybody on the Arizona Cardinals roster right now, and I'm pretty sure we still beat everybody by about 20 million. We have $120 million right now. It's crazy. But I do look at it for what it is. And listen, everybody knows, Evan knows, because he's in the ASAP chat, and I go insane all the time about how big of a fan I am of Justin Fields. He's the same age as me, so we graduated in the same class. Grew up watching that guy on Max Prep Sports all the way from the Netflix show Georgia, then obviously Ohio State, to now. The kid's a leader. The kid's a leader. The kid has the most work ethic in the room. I could definitely see trading down. Like I said in the comments, if you could so lovingly pull that up. If you D-hop in 2 first, Evan, I'm just saying, it gets it done for me. But in all seriousness, the one thing I think what bothers me is Ryan Poles being a first-time GM and inheriting Justin Fields. You know, the big thing about being a GM is getting your guy for the next 5 to 10 years that you believe is going to be able to lead this franchise. I'm not saying, he doesn't think Justin's a good player, but, you only get the number 1 overall pick every so often unless you're a poverty franchise. This is the 3rd time in history we've had the number 1 pick, and the first 2 times we took running backs in 41 and 47. So the game has changed a lot. So for me, Evan, like it's weird to have this conversation because you know how much I love Fields. But if I'm a first-time GM and I inherited Fields, who just broke Michael Vick's records, who's number 2 all-time in a rushing quarterback season, let's say for whatever reason you can get a first-round pick for Justin Fields right now, and you draft let's say Bryce Young or CJ Stroud because you believe that's your guy, I mean, you could end up still getting a top 5 pick. Because let's be real, I don't know how you guys feel. Levis is the next Mitch Trubisky, Zach Wilson. I do not believe in Levis whatsoever. And everybody else is kind of a project outside of Stroud and obviously Young. So for me, Justin Fields would be the 3rd quarterback taken off this list. So that's really where I'm at with it. If you can walk out the draft, let's say we give it to the Colts or the Seahawks for Justin Fields. Hey, you walk out the draft with Bryce Young and Jalen Carter, I'm cool with it. I go on that whole little ramble because I'm just saying that's an entire possibility. Like there is a shot that happens. You also trade back, give Justin some weapons. Like there's so many different ways this can go. If I had to tell you right now what this Bears offseason is going to be like, just watch draft day. And that's literally how I feel about it right now. We have the number 1 pick and we do not know what we're going to do with it until it happens.
That is an interesting take about, picking a quarterback and trading it. Cause I've had that thought about Kyler Murray. What if we did take a quarterback at number 3?
I just talked about you, not to interrupt, but I just talked about you the other day, you and Jay Ness, and I'm not gonna be on blast, so I mentioned Jason as well. Just don't watch the episode. But in all seriousness, I look at the Josh Rosen situation. Josh Rosen comes in. Hey, we just took this guy. What was it? 10 overall. We took Justin Fields 11 overall. It's not like he was the number 1 overall pick. And then the very next year, you bring in Kyler Murray. And that's really where I was sitting there. And I was like, man, like this is a legitimate possibility that this happens. Now, Justin, in all respect to Josh Rosen, is miles ahead of what Josh Rosen was doing at the time.
Not even close.
Not even
playing field altogether.
Yeah. But that's also the conversation of, okay, so you had to let go of Josh, but you can actually get something for Justin. So like that's where it's like, if I can get another first for Justin and have number 1, it's a legit conversation for me. But I love Jay. I love Jay. I've won. That's my guy. So I do not want to see him leave. But that's just me saying, like, there's so, like, you saw that whole little spiel, Evan. Like, people are probably like, damn, like, that's possible. Like, that's why it freaks me out, bro. Like, it gives me anxiety even thinking about it.
Joe or JJ, do you guys have any input there or questions for Mike regarding Chicago, the assistant GM, and what they could do, or any comments of what he just said? Because those were very intriguing.
I think Justin Fields has a lot of potential. I just think it'd be hard to get a first round, and not because he's not a good player, but with quarterbacks, when you draft them, what you really want is that you want those first 3 years before you have to extend them. And it's not that people wouldn't want to trade for the player, but I don't know that they would want to trade for a quarterback that they're going to be maybe a year away from having to pay the big contract. When if they have a first round pick, they might rather draft someone. So that's not a knock on him. It's more, kind of a roster construction thing.
Right.
But I like the situation. And if because do you sit there, stay put, and take Will Anderson or Jalen Carter and get an elite defensive piece, or do you trade back to one of these teams that needs a quarterback and get a haul? Right. If it's me, as much as I like those, what I try to do if it's me is I try to trade, see if person at number 2 wants to switch, because then you can get some draft capital and still get one of those defensive players. Or maybe I try to trade back to 4 with Indy and, or trade back and build a really good roster around him. But if it's me, I build around Fields, what, continue to grow with him. But, listen, having the first overall pick, it's not great how it gets there as a team, but that's an enviable position to be in terms of the draft capital.
Yeah, man. It's like, I feel like the first team that ever got the number 1 overall pick and was like, I don't care. Like, I was not jumping for joy. I was literally just like, okay, cool. Like, and I watched that final drive. If anybody got a chance to see it, Stetson Bennett at 3. You know what? And that's like the craziest story of them all, not to get off topic, but I mean, back-to-back national champion. And we're not even talking about this kid getting drafted. Like, that's the craziest story I think ever told. Trade down, get that wide receiver from TCU. I would rather not. That's for me, Evan, that's a far steep that we're talking trading down. Like, how far are we trading down in that conversation? But my big pick, if we're having a legitimate conversation, is Seattle. Seattle right now has pick 20 and I believe pick 5 or 6. I forget exactly.
4 from Denver.
4. Okay, yeah. But 4. So the way I'm thinking about it, because Evan so lovingly just destroyed JJ Watt's entire career. No, I'm playing. That was definitely Houston yet again. So the way I'm looking at it right now, let's say the Bears, Geno Smith, amazing season, congratulations, you're 33. Like that's what it is. So if we could trade with Seattle, get 4 and 20, I am completely confident that obviously my guy on my left is definitely going to take Will Anderson. So I'm hoping I can land Jalen Carter at 4, and I think I can. And then obviously at 20,
two mock drafts have the Quentin Johnson TC wide receiver at 9 to Carolina, who does need a quarterback.
Just real quick, Seattle has pick 5. And then their later pick is to be determined based on how the playoffs. Right. So it could be as high as 19 and as low as 32. Really,
Right. No, yeah. I mean, if they win the Super Bowl, don't even call me, bro. Don't even call me. Don't call me. I already gave pick number 32 for Chase Claypool. I don't need to do this again. Like I'm fine.
For the record, Cardinals fans, this particular mock draft has the Cardinals drafting Bijan Robinson out of Texas. That is very high for a running back. But hey, you know what? Yeah. I'll talk myself into Kyler Murray, Bijan Robinson, a rookie running back in the backfield. I'll talk myself into that, but not where I would go. Not where I would go. That's a trade down scenario for me.
Yeah.
JJ, anything for Mike, who so graciously joined us randomly here. I love it.
I appreciate you hopping on, Mike. I really like the hat, man.
Funny. You can find this at any local Chicago store, even if it's at the bank. They're just
that's for you, Suns fan Randy. That's for you right there. He's a big Green Bay Packers fan too.
Oh yeah,
God, I was talking shit about Green Bay all day. That's so funny. But
the Jamal Williams podcast now. Shout out Jamal Williams.
All right. But yeah, for the Chicago Bears, if you don't know, I'm a Ohio State football fan.
I'm sorry.
Doesn't like it, whatever. Yeah. I know, right? But just Ohio State doesn't have the best reputation.
Don't start with me.
Don't have the best reputation when it comes to their QBs going to the NFL and being successful. Right. So I was really optimistic about Justin Fields going into when he was drafted. This last season, he actually was pretty impressive for what he was dealt with, and I saw glimpses of Vic with kind of a better arm. I've seen some David McNabb sort of looks from him too. So he's definitely sticking out from previous history. So I would definitely look to build around him. You think supplying them with the weapons necessary is the main focus, or fixing up that defense, because that defense is rough.
Yeah.
So I think Justin can. I will know the where you're more leaning towards. I see that defense. I'm like, they really need something on that side of the ball. Yeah. But I think Claypool could be a 1 or 2. If y'all can possibly trade down and at least get a 1, have Claypool at the 2. I think y'all can be okay. And stacking that defense, I think that's the best game plan for y'all. But as for your head coach situation, how are you feeling about that?
Listen, I love Flus, and I always go out and let everybody know that I love Flus the person. I love him as the leader. I love him as the motivator. I said from day one, and if Evan was in the chat as well, I screamed it every single day. Brian Daboll literally embodies what looking like a Chicago Bears fan is. He looks like he has 12 Mike Ditka sausages a day. And, he looks like he goes to Benny's Beverages every day and gets a 12-pack at least by noon. He looked like that. And he was so strategic in Buffalo that I wanted him to be the OC. I don't like revolving doors of offensive coordinators. Justin Fields has had 3 in the last 2 years. I don't believe in Luke Getsy. And, when Matt Eberflus isn't even calling the plays on defense, it kind of just I like him. I like him a lot, but I question if he is just kind of that, hey, build the culture, and then we're going to find our guy later on. So that's really where I'm at with Flus. And for the defense, the secondary looks great. I love the secondary. Jaquan Brisker is a future All-Pro. Jalen Johnson, the stats aren't really there from an interception standpoint, but that kid is like glued to your hip, and he's insane when he's healthy. Kyler Gordon, moved him from the slot to the outside. It looked a lot better. He's a Pac-12 kid. He definitely picked it up, and I love seeing that. But I will say this to your point, because I will give you some love. there's a very small portion size of Ohio State quarterbacks that are actually, you look at them in legitimacy, because a lot of them don't go in the first round. You look at what it really is. And this is a podcast about the Cardinals.
Don't worry. We were getting insight for
My
the number
fault.
one pick and assistant GM.
It
Don't
just
worry.
happened.
Don't worry.
But yeah, Dwayne Haskins, God rest his soul. He definitely had some, issues
yeah,
mentally.
for sure.
Yeah, had some issues mentally that he just needed to figure out and grow up a little bit. And unfortunately, he never got that opportunity to show that. Justin Fields is one of those guys too. And I think CJ Stroud is going to go through the same issues. Like, bro, you had Chris Olave, Williams. I mean, we're talking about all these guys coming through, Garrett Wilson. And then you go to the Chicago Bears and it's like, all right, here's Byron Pringle. And it's like, all right, well, that's why we're struggling. Yeah, it's why we're struggling. But I like Flus. I think he's solid. My last little Bears ramble, because I know we got to get back to the Cards though. I like Jackson Smith-Njigba. I like the connection there, the Ohio State connection. Injury history, I got Lonzo Ball and other guys I got to deal with. I don't know if I do that, but Jordan Addison, guys like that, I like as well. But one I've been preaching for the last 2 years, because I think we're in an amazing situation to do so. I don't think it's going to happen during the draft. I think it happens closer to OTAs. There's always a prima donna. There's always a guy who wants to get paid or just doesn't like his situation. I look at the Bengals and I see they already have Jesse Bates. They already have a bunch of guys on defense getting paid. O-line's getting paid. You're going to have to pay Burrow, Chase, and T. Higgins. If I'm the Bears, I go, listen, you're not getting this first this year, but I'll give you a first in 2024 for T. Higgins. If you could rock out with T. Higgins, Chase Claypool, and Darnell Mooney with Justin Fields moving forward, I'm happy with it.
And everything that the Bears do is going to directly affect the Cardinals moving forward. We are going to get back to some Cardinal stuff. Mike, thank you so much for hopping on real quick. Definitely have you on like during some draft coverage and stuff, and we'll hook up later down the line. All right, my friend?
For sure, brother. I'll talk to y'all later.
Cheers.
Peace.
Thank you, Mike.
See you, Mike. Thank you.
That's some really great insight, honestly, about the number one pick and what could legitimately happen with Chicago. I hadn't thought about that because I was still in fire Kliff Kingsbury mode, but that's going to be something we really need to watch out for. I mean, if we do wind up with Will Anderson at 3 or Jalen Carter, I'm very happy with that. I mean, you get a outside linebacker or a D lineman. Give me the inside lineman because I'm all about building the lines, but I'm going to be very happy. We are a little bit over the hour mark here. So real quick, Joe and JJ, I want to get your guys' input on the draft coming up and what your expectations might be. But first, Adrian Wilson and Quentin Harris. Joe, talk to me about A-Dub and Q.
I love Adrian Wilson. I mean, I was a fan since they drafted him. And, I did a video of how I would fix the Cardinals. It was up to me. I did it back in November. So it's been a couple of months. And at the time, I had Adrian Wilson as who I would tab, for general manager. I have moved away from that. I still like him. I think he'll be a GM someday. But I've moved towards let's get someone from another organization to bring those best practices in. The only scenario in which I could be okay with A-Dub, and again, this is not a slam on him. I love A-Dub, but the only scenario for me is if they brought in a coach who wants to have a lot of control, and we're like, okay, Sean Payton, you can come in, and here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna keep A-Dub and Quentin, Harris in their current roles as kind of co-GMs, and they'll take care of a lot of the logistics, but they're gonna work very closely with you, right, and give you what you want. That's maybe the only scenario where I maybe go in that direction, but I prefer at this point now going outside the organization.
Do you agree, JJ?
Yeah, 100%. I want to start off on a clean slate. I love Adrian Wilson. I love A-Dub just as much as anybody. I think what he should be doing is not only scouting, but reaching out to the top free agents in the next in this year and next year possibly, and just tell them how great Arizona is, and we're making big changes, and would love for them to consider coming here at some point. JJ Watt finished his career here. Shout out to him. What a beautiful career that he had. And D-Hop this year, and he's shown nothing but professionalism. And it seems like he loves his quarterback, regardless of everything that's going on right now. So, like, especially on the receiver side, offensive players, defensive players. I think this is a good destination in general, especially if Sean Payton, a guy like Sean Payton comes in. I think it's going to be appealing to a lot of people. And if Adrian Wilson can take that ball and run with it and start recruiting, there's certain people throwing out names like if we had Adrian Wilson trying to get like Sue, if we were good, if Sue, I feel like we could have got Sue here for just to close out the season and whatnot. Considering how depleted on defense we were, or at least gave him the false promise that we were going to be good in the beginning of the season and just kind of trapped him here. But if you can, like you said before, I'd rather start on a clean slate and just kind of just start fresh. If that means kicking Vance Joseph to the side, I'm more than willing to do so. Again, it's not my money.
I,
And I think what we also need to address is that Bidwell is kind of opened his wallet and is willing to pay this out going forward with the guaranteed money and stuff. So I feel like if he was going to make Vance Joseph temporary head coach, it would have been announced by now. So I definitely feel like things are going to be clearing up and we're going to see a lot new personnel.
I've got some kind of breaking news here, and I've seen this a handful of tweets so far. So somebody, please, this is Arizona State football related. Someone please tell me if this is real or not. Coach Prime Dion in Colorado alluded to this, but now I'm seeing it pop up a couple times. Colorado to open 2023 season at Arizona State week 0. If anybody doesn't know, the week 0 has like 5, 6, 7, 8 games or something like that. The technically before week 1 or still involved in week 1. This is kind of weird to me. I just want to bring this up. I don't know why we would play them in week 0 because I was pretty sure we're going to keep on playing them in conference. I don't know. This is very strange. So Arizona State to open up against Colorado, kind of semi-breaking stuff here. Weird. I want to get into that just a little bit more. Very strange stuff. If anybody sees anything else, please put it in the chat. Before we get out of here, I just want to just touch on the draft and what Mike said about drafting a QB, then maybe even trading Justin Fields, all that stuff. That's what I was thinking about with Kyler and being injured. If he has to miss the year, if he has to miss 8 weeks, Joe, is there a possibility a new GM who always wants their guys, they want their coach, they're this, they're that. Do you think there could be a possibility that we would draft a quarterback at 3, start him, see what we have, maybe trade one of them down the line? I think personally it's kind of a bad rap because then that means whoever's left over, whatever quarterback is left over, you're not going to get back in return what you gave up. That's for damn sure. And there's always going to be the reason, well, why didn't he start? He's obviously not good enough. So I think it's dangerous. It's a slippery slope. I could see it in a multiverse of Arizona Cardinals football. Do you think that's at all possible that we take a quarterback and trade Kyler? If not, what are your thoughts on the draft?
I think that would be a mistake, and I don't think they do that. I think that they are going to bring in a GM who's going to have a conventional kind of best practices approach, and that just to me is unwise. I know there are a lot of people who aren't a believer in Kyler, but his contract, whether you like him or not, you're stuck with him for at least about 3 years before you can realistically move. There's like a $50-something million dead cap hit for trading him before the draft. And so you don't use a number 3 pick on another quarterback and then have that dilemma with an organization that's had so much bad PR and so much bad kind of stuff. You don't want to create a bigger mess.
Right.
So I think the person they bring in is going to be brought in to figure out how to make it work with Kyler. I think the GM and the coach are bringing in are a GM and coach. Like that's going to be part of the interview process. What's your plan for Kyler? Right. So I think in terms of the quarterback situation, I did a video about what they should do about Kyler. I think what they should do is bring in a veteran kind of journeyman, like to me, Jacoby Brissett, bring him in. Right. The guy has started for teams at points. Bring him in.
I like him.
Let him know you're going to have a chance to be that starter at least until Kyler's ready to go. And that not a ton of money. And as good as these rookie quarterbacks might be, they're if you're drafting them to start till Kyler's healthy, they're not going to be as good as a veteran journeyman in that duration, right? Like someone like Jacoby Brissett is going to come in and play better for that first 4, 6, or 8 games than that rookie is going to. You use that draft pick to build a team around Kyler for moving forward. So to me, is it possible? Lots of things are possible, but it is highly improbable. Now, you asked, Jay, go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead, jump in.
No, please. No, go ahead.
I was just saying, you asked what to do with the draft. For me, at number 3, if Will Anderson and Jalen Carter are gone, you trade back. If one of them is there, I'm good with taking them. But those are the only 2 players I want to take at number 3.
All defense, baby.
Yeah.
JJ.
What?
Go. Yeah, go.
Okay, cool. I totally agree with you, Joe. I will add to this. There's 3 guys that absolutely need to stay here and kind of untouchable to me. It's Budda Baker, Zach Allen, and D-Hop. I wouldn't touch those guys at all. You can build around those guys in any sense. I'm totally cool. With the draft, it's line work. Offensive line and the defensive line need to be worked with. I think Justin Pugh's done. I'm pretty sure Rodney Hudson is going to be retiring. I want to move off of Max Garcia as quick as possible and maybe keep Josh Jones in his actual position and stop playing him out of position. I kind of gave him a lot of shit last season when it wasn't it wasn't necessarily his fault. So offensive line needs a lot of work. And like you said earlier, Evan, if we can get a middle of the pack offensive line, I think Kyler would be more than happy to. Happy to work with that, especially with Cody Ford being a part of this team as well. We can definitely do something. On the D line, build around Zach Allen. I feel like Marcus Golden was doubled a lot this season. He didn't get a lot of opportunity to do something. JJ Watt kind of carried the burden. He was the guy that broke the line just about every single time. Maybe get something out of Marcus Golden, maybe upgrade, but absolutely build around Zach Allen. He's baby Watt. I think he's shown a lot of flashes in the last 2 seasons that he can be a lead defensive lineman going forward for this team for sure. And plus, there isn't a lot on the market for defensive linemen in general. But if we can get some young guys, some corn-fed dudes. If you watch Georgia tonight, they have some studs, man. So if we can get one of those SEC defensive linemen and just get 2 of those guys paired along with Zach Allen, we're cooking with grease at that point, in my opinion, especially on the defensive side. And you still have Budda Baker back there. I'm totally cool.
My last thoughts. First off, when John Gruden got traded to the Bucs from the Raiders, that was the last real big coaching trade. I don't count Herm Edwards going from the Jets to the Chiefs or vice versa. I really don't count that one. That was for 2 firsts and 2 seconds, by the way. That was back in 2002 or 3, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 4. And I don't know if the market value is there, especially for a guy like Sean Payton, who's been kind of chilling in the wind a little bit here, or waiting in the wings, if you will. So, but just food for thought on the trade. As far as what the Cardinals need to do, we're going to have plenty of time to talk about this. Rumors are going to come up, cut days are going to come up, and we're going to get to kind of go on this journey together. But that interior offensive line needs help. I'm fine with it if we stick with Beachum or Jones on the right tackle. But that interior line, center and both guard positions, I think need massive upgrades. If you want to stick with Will Hernandez again, you can talk me into that. Absolutely. As long as the new offensive line coach brings a new breath of fresh air to them. Right. Running back, I'm draft a guy in the 4th, 5th, or 6th round. I'm fine. Pair him with John Connor, or I'm totally fine with that. Tight ends, I'm fine. Wide receiver, we're good. Don't you dare sign another receiver unless it's to replace AJ Green, and we kind of need a 4th or 5th guy down there.
Or Rondale.
Rondale, you got Greg Dortch, maybe just one more big guy. I don't want to bring back what's his name that we traded for in the offseason that didn't
Robbie Anderson.
Anderson. I don't want Robbie Anderson back. If you do bring it back, I can talk myself into it. That's fine. Defensively, D-line, 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 D-line. I'm curious if Rashard Lawrence can get one more chance, what that would look like. I really want him to succeed. I thought he was an integral part the last 2 years before he got hurt, man. He was eating up
And
bodies.
Majay.
Two guys. The interior D-line, Zach Allen, that's great. Get another D end. Bring that in. I'd love me some Cam Thomas and Myjai Sanders. I love what Marcus Golden can bring, or the ghost of Marcus Golden, what he brought. But, if you end up with Will Anderson on the other side too, you got 4 dudes that can rush the passer. The one that doesn't perform is out, and I have no problem doing that. Interior linebacker, you got with the guys that we got to run with it. Don't add anybody, just let them loose, and maybe with a new voice in their head, they can perform a little bit better and differently. Cornerback room, I still love Marco Wilson, Antonio Hamilton, Byron Murphy. If we can bring Byron Murphy Jr. back, I think that's a must. Get some depth behind there. Nothing needs to be done to the safety room. I'm very happy with Buda and Jalen Thompson. Keep that running as is, and for God's sakes, get a new kicker in here. But that is Coach Evan B's little rant on what we need to do and fix personnel wise. What the coach, or who the coach has hired and who he brings in, is really going to dictate what we're going to do as far as, brooding run offense versus, pressure heavy type of defense. All that is going to come in time. This next week is going to be fun. Looking forward to seeing what comes out tomorrow. Who are the coaches candidates going to be tomorrow? Who are the Titans going to hire? Who are all these people going to hire? A lot of this is going to be played out, and I think we're going to have our answer probably within the next 7 to 10 days with both of those dudes, and then we can start getting into the team. AZ Sports, Arizona Sports Underground, azsportsunderground.com. Everybody check that out. I'm finally writing another article on the mighty Arizona State Sun Devil basketball team this year, which now they're ranked 58th in the net rating after winning 2 games and being ranked 55th. They win 2 games and now they're 58. So make it make sense. While they love Oregon, even though the Oregon strength of schedule is like 13th, Arizona State's like 248 or 238, something just awful. Their strength of schedule is terrible, but catch me on there. Also at the ASAP Sports Network, a lot of good things happening in both places for all of you sports fans. We're going to get out of here right now. Hopefully we're going to come back later this week, a Thursday or Friday show. I guess we'll talk some Suns, but it's probably going to be more Cardinals centric right now. Hopefully we'll bring back Peter Boyle as well too. We can talk some more ASU hoops. Good things happening overall. This is a chance to cleanse Cardinals fans. This is as bad or worse than that Wilkes season. So look at the bright side. We have a franchise quarterback. We have a franchise stalwart in Budda Baker on the defensive side. We have young guys on both sides. We need to just find a few guys on the line and the D line, plug and play a few nice free agent signings, get a strong draft class in here. And I promise you, we have a top 7 NFC roster. We do. Like, without a doubt, we do. John Connor's going to have 18 touchdowns next year. But I want to pat myself on the back for one thing, JJ. And I said JJ Watt was only going to miss no more than 2 games. Out of all my predictions, I got that one right, JJ. So
you were right. You were right.
I got that one.
Yeah.
Shit, everything else was dog awful. But I also did say we were going to get 5 wins, didn't I?
Yeah. I mean, you're close. It's like, I'll add one more thing before we get out of here. I was doing reflecting of this last season. We, like, at minimum, we should have been 8 and 9. But with this roster, I thought we can be at least 1 win better, because I mean, we're basically bringing back the same roster, and if we had the same execution to start the season, I feel like we would have been okay. But yeah, like, I think just about everybody had to go, considering how the first 8 weeks went, and like how we closed out too. So if you're feeling bad for Kliff, feel bad for the person and not necessarily what he did for the team and stuff. With Keim, hopefully he finds things that he's better at. He's caused us a lot of pain throughout the years.
Hopefully he finds some peace.
Yeah, some peace, please. But Bidwill showed he had a backbone, and I really do appreciate it. And I'm really excited, the first time in a long time, for a Arizona Cardinals draft. And I'm really hopeful that we can really change this franchise around and not be known as the team that's been around for 100 years and hasn't kept a head coach for more than 6 years. Or the last time we had the number 3 pick, we got Larry Fitzgerald. So I
I
mean,
did see that today.
yeah. So like that, like we have the pieces, we have the opportunity to make something out of nothing. I think we're really appealing to the masses. Like fuck what Nick Wright thinks. I honestly don't care. Franchise QB. We have a third round pick.
Nick Wright.
We have wide receivers, and we have a pretty decent defense. But we have a hell of a leader, of Buda Baker. I think this is one of the most appealing teams in the league when it comes to hiring head coaches, and especially in the GM position as well.
No matter what you can say, at least Steve Keim set us up for this, right?
I know. Shout out, Con. It's Con time.
Oh man, yep, it's exciting. Cardinals have been doom and gloom ever since we got ousted last year in the playoffs, man. From the first game against the Chiefs to barely winning against the Raiders to just the downward spiral. It's been one straight year. No, almost. This coming Monday will be one straight year. So 51 weeks of doom and gloom, and this was a little breath of fresh air. Joe, tell everybody where they can find you.
Find me obviously at azsportsunderground.com as Evan talked about. You can also find me on YouTube at the Cardinal Rule. And just gonna throw out there that I'm going to be starting sometime in the next week or two mock draft Monday live streams where we're going to do the PFF and a couple other websites have some mock draft simulators.
He's on fire.
That's right. We did this last preseason, and it was a blast. Just a great way to familiarize yourself with the prospects. People will be able to submit mock drafts on Twitter or in Discord to me, and I will put your mock draft up, and we'll talk through it. We'll talk about some of the prospects. Evan, I'm gonna have you on there if you're up for it as a guest co-host. It's a lot of fun. We did them last year, and it was a blast. So sometime in the next couple weeks, I'm going to be starting that up. So make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications for the Cardinal Rule, just like you need to do that for He's on Fire podcast. And come join us for Mock Draft Mondays. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I have a feeling your list isn't going to be as big this year, considering we have the number 3 pick and those list of candidates is a little bit shorter of who you want to get. But either way, everybody go hit up the Cardinal Rule. Please like and share this video, subscribe, ring the bell, all that fun stuff. Had a great turnout, had over 15 people watching right now, which is great considering I took like a 4-month hiatus. So thank you everybody for coming on. We appreciate you. Westville just came in. About damn time is all I can say. We're back, and we're better than ever. And we got some great guests that we're going to line up as well too. Just going to leave it off here. Not going to play the outro video. Everyone, thanks for coming by. This is a new day in Arizona Cardinal football.